Good morning, everyone. I'm Dalton Bentley, and I'm delighted to be here to share insights on two connected areas of English learner success: leveraging English language assets and building strong home and school connections. When we consider our EL students, we must see how they contribute to so much linguistic and cultural knowledge into our schools, and it's our professional responsibility to honor this and actually use their strengths to foster inclusive and effective learning environments. To begin, we need to cover culturally responsive teaching. When we think about culturally responsive teaching, we should start by thinking about cultural influences on teaching and learning. This includes the unseen rules, values, and experiences that impact how students learn from the curriculum and how their peers and how they understand the world. For example, a student from a culture that focuses on collaboration might feel group success is more important than individual success, which might influence their engagement in classroom activities. Now, we must address cultural competence. Cultural competence is not only knowing other cultures, it is about the self reflection and developing the knowledge and skills that enable us to positively engage with the unique needs of diverse students. For EL students, this should serve as the essential framework in creating culturally responsive instruction that recognizes all EAs as assets. When we're combining cultural values and beliefs in the context of teaching and learning, it is important to ensure these efforts fit. You must keep in mind these moments aren't about tokenism, but about meaningfully integrating the students' experiences in the curriculum. For instance, if a lesson discusses the government, you might invite a student to share their knowledge of their home country's politics. This will then help them share and teach their peers interesting information while also building a strong connections with the content being studied in the classroom. We cannot overstate the role of culture in the learning process. Culture is inherently the lens through which students will process and internalize new information and experience the world. The learning environment is going to influence English language student language acquisition. This means they must be safe spaces so students do not have to deal with the anxiety of cultural or language mistakes. Here are some steps to create inclusive environments. Curriculum review. This will ensure all students see themselves represented in materials and resources. Creating a physical space that provides support in the actual space by providing labels on objects, and instructional equity that relies on differentiation and scaffolding so student language skills do not limit their access to the curriculum. More strategies for supporting and celebrating classrooms cultural diversity should be nuanced. This means that moving beyond focusing on holidays and food and including other pieces of culture like art and history. We can even combine cultural narratives into content instruction. For example, studying myths of multiple cultures and comparing them. Strategies for leveraging home language and cultural assets could include using translanguaging, which is encouraging students to use languages as a flexible tool for learning and communicating and not restricting language separation. So, for example, Spanglish. You could also use peer tutoring, where you're pairing English language students with their bilingual peers for more detailed discussions, and that will build confidence and deepen understanding. And finally, there's curriculum co creation. Students should be engaged in the creation of some of the content, sharing their own experiences and bringing that knowledge into the classroom for everyone. So, to address the needs of all students, including English language students and those with special needs, teachers must be responsive and flexible. To have an effective responses in teaching, they must have a thorough understanding that EL students are unique. And to be effective, we must use multiple data and assessment tools to identify their individualized learning journeys. And for English language students with special needs, language acquisition goals and special education goals must be integrated into the individualized education program or their IEP. For example, an EL student with a writing disability may need both specialized graphic organizers and sentence stems and targeted language scaffolds that give them access to the materials. Strategies to meet the social and emotional needs of English language students are so essential and often overlooked. These students are often navigating cultural transitions along with the daily challenges of learning in a new language. So, with all of that, we must provide them with things and supports. Something like affirmation spaces, creating small groups where EL students can feel safe and share their own experiences with people of similar backgrounds, explicit instructions. Teaching socio emotional skills should be treated like any other content. It should include specific, comprehensible language scaffolds. And restorative practices. We should be using restorative strategies that align with culturally diverse students. The importance of understanding the social, emotional, and cultural needs of students when creating classroom routines and procedures is vital. Routines are so important in the classroom because they provide predictability and safety for students. However, these routines must be established with cultural sensitivity in mind. For instance, the classroom might not want to rely on independent action, um, like raising the hand when looking for support. Instead, it might be more useful for a teacher to establish a number of routines using nonverbal cues or regular check ins that will recognize the cultural diverse communication styles. We must also consider how family and community practices influence language learning. Understanding these influences will provide cultural and practical resources that reflect the experiences and community life of students. For language learning, these cultural resources are vital. For example, a student whose family owns a small business might use specialized vocabulary in their home life, or a student whose family participates in organizing cultural events might demonstrate high level interpersonal communication skills. So when teachers identify and tap into these assets, they are not only validating that student's identity, but also providing essential context for language development. Our strategy to build and foster strong family, community, and school partnerships should be a priority. This involves making a shift from a school centric model of engagement to a partnership model where the expertise of the family and community is valued with that of the educator. Effective family engagement practices that support the assets of home, cultures, and language are going to require a few things like communication, meaning utilizing multilingual staff and translation to ensure that family understands everything. Also includes family involvement, rethinking what involvement means beyond volunteering and including co creating goals or serving on advisory committees. And then intentional strategies, providing families with very specific, culturally relevant strategies that support learning in the home. In the end, we must be proactive in seeking out and collaborating with community organizations, cultural centers, faith based groups, local businesses to create learning opportunities that are truly reflective of the entire community. Hosting events in the community, like a library or park, rather than exclusively at the school, might help lower those barriers of participation and demonstrate that the school values the community's spaces. By focusing on these strategies, viewing our EL students as learners, rich in cultural and linguistic assets, and building collaborative partnerships with their families, we will move beyond compliance toward true equity and academic excellence for every student. Thank you very much.